Welcome to Dreamy Tales, a place where gentle, relaxing stories will guide you into a deep sleep. On this channel, we'll be sharing soothing stories to help you unwind and forget the worries of the day. If you enjoy these peaceful moments, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you won't miss any of our bedtime tales. Let's create a space of relaxation together each night. Now, before we dive into tonight's story, let's take a few moments to relax your body and mind. Find a comfortable spot to sit or lie down. Gently close your eyes and take a deep breath. Inhale slowly, feeling the fresh air filling your lungs, and slowly exhale, letting the tension in your body gradually melt away. Repeat this 3 more times. With each breath, feel yourself becoming more relaxed and ready to enter the magical world of stories. Now, loosen your shoulders, gently massage your face, and release any remaining tension. Pay attention to any areas in your body that still feel tight, maybe in your neck, back, or legs, and gently let them relax. Next, we'll do a short guided visualization. Imagine yourself in a beautiful garden under the night sky, with the soft moonlight shining down. You can hear the rustling of leaves in the breeze, the sound of water flowing gently in the distance. Feel the cool breeze brushing against your face. Now that your body and mind are relaxed, let's step into tonight's story. But before we begin, remind yourself that you deserve these moments of relaxation, and let go of all worries as you listen to each word. And now, as you are fully relaxed, let's begin our journey into tonight's tale. Allow my words to guide you into a world of dreams and serenity. Relax and listen slowly. It was early morning in Istanbul, and the first light of the day bathed the city in a soft, golden hue. The air was fresh, with a gentle breeze sweeping through the cobblestone streets, carrying the sweet fragrance of flowers. The trees that lined the streets, ergovan trees, their branches heavy with large, delicate pink blossoms, swayed slightly, as if stretching their arms to greet the day. In the corners of the old city, purple wisteria climbed the weathered walls, adding a splash of color to the scene. Everywhere you looked, vibrant tulips were beginning to bloom, their petals unfurling in the flower beds along Yildiz Park and Taksim Square. Despite the beauty of the spring morning, there was one creature in the heart of the city who was oblivious to it all. Samuel, a sleek gray cat with amber eyes, lay curled up on a pile of traditional woolen rugs inside the Grand Bazaar, lost in a peaceful slumber. The Grand Market, known for its bustling energy, was still in the early hours of the morning and remained shrouded in the quiet stillness of a place yet to awaken. The darkness inside the bazaar only added to the sense of calm, but it wouldn't last for long. Soon, the first rays of sunlight began to pour through the grand wooden doors of the marketplace, illuminating the maze of alleyways and stalls. As the light filtered in, Samuel stirred slightly, his tail twitching in his sleep. One eye cracked open lazily, blinking against the light as he adjusted to the shift in atmosphere. He could hear the footsteps of the stall holders approaching, each of them preparing to begin another day of trade. The creaking sound of windows being opened echoed through the still air, followed by the comforting hum of a coffee grinder from one of the nearby stalls. The rich aroma of freshly ground coffee beans filled the air, tempting Samuel to rise and start his own day. Stretching his legs, he slowly unfurled from his curled-up position, first raising his front paws high, then extending his back and tail to their full length, before giving a gentle yawn. He jumped down from the pile of rugs, and before moving on, took a moment to use his tail to swipe any stray hairs away from the antique wooden floor. He knew the merchant would not appreciate finding bits of his fur on such valuable rugs. After all, Samuel had always been a thoughtful cat. His stomach rumbled. A breakfast was in order. There were so many options, but today, Samuel knew exactly what he craved. The Grand Bazaar was a treasure trove of smells and sights, each stall offering something unique. The market, which had stood for centuries, was like a living mosaic, a maze of more than 4,000 shops, each one selling everything from intricate gold jewelry to exotic spices, from delicate silk scarves to the finest hand-woven carpets. It was a place of both history and commerce, where merchants had conducted their business for over 5 centuries. Samuel wandered through the market's labyrinthine lanes, his keen eyes taking in the array of goods. He stopped at a spice stall where copper barrels were filled with spices in every imaginable color: vivid saffron, bright turmeric, and the deep, rich red of cinnamon. He sniffed the air, his nose twitching at the spicy scents. Further along, he admired a display of intricately painted glass lanterns, their vibrant colors shimmering in the light. As he passed a carpet stall, he stopped for a moment to admire the carpets being unrolled, their bold patterns and colors a striking sight. But it wasn't the sights that Samuel was after today. It was food. His stomach growled again as he approached the stall that sold fish, a fresh catch that had just been hauled in from the Bosphorus. It was a local delicacy he couldn't resist. His paws clicked against the cobblestones as he walked toward the edge of the bazaar and out into the streets of old Istanbul. The morning air was crisp, and the streets were alive with people going about their day. Samuel made his way toward the water, passing by a mosque with its towering domes and graceful minarets. He followed the winding path to the Galata Bridge, which stretched across the Bosphorus Strait, dividing the city into 2 continents, Europe on one side, Asia on the other. Samuel, standing on the European side, could see across the water to the Asian side of the city, a view he often admired when he ventured out to the bridge. The Galata Bridge was a lively place, always bustling with people, fishermen, and street vendors. Samuel had grown used to the thick forest of fishing rods that lined the railing, each one waiting patiently for a catch. He could see the fishermen, who stood along the edge of the bridge, casting their lines into the water with practiced ease. From time to time, a splash would break the stillness of the morning as a fish was hauled from the depths of the Bosphorus, wriggling on the hook before being reeled in. It was a familiar scene, one that Samuel watched every time he passed by. But as tempting as the freshly caught fish was, Samuel had something else in mind today: a fish sandwich. Known as balak ekmek, this local specialty was served hot, fresh off the grill, and Samuel had tasted it many times before. The vendors on the boats that bobbed along the Bosphorus were experts at grilling the fish. They caught the fish, placed it immediately on the sizzling grill, and then served it with a slice of lemon on a piece of fresh, crusty bread. The sandwich was wrapped up quickly in paper, making it easy to eat on the go, and it was a favorite of locals and visitors alike. As Samuel made his way to his favorite boat, he could already see the vendor preparing for another busy morning. The chef behind the grill looked up and saw the marmalade cat approaching. With a wink and a smile, the vendor tossed a sandwich in Samuel's direction. Without hesitation, Samuel caught it in midair and devoured it in a few swift bites. The flaky, tender fish, paired with the tangy lemon and the soft bread, was as delicious as always. The warm crumbs stuck to Samuel's whiskers, and he licked them clean, savoring every last bit. With his hunger satisfied, Samuel left the waterfront and ventured further into the historic district of Sultanahmet. The narrow, cobbled streets led him through the heart of the old city, past the grand mosques and ancient buildings that had stood the test of time. In the distance, he could see the Blue Mosque, its towering minarets rising above the rooftops, a symbol of the city's rich cultural heritage. The mosque's stunning architecture was even more breathtaking up close, with its intricate blue tiles and large dome that seemed to stretch up to the sky. Samuel had visited the mosque many times before, but every time he entered, he was struck by its beauty and tranquility. He padded up to the entrance, slipping past the line of people waiting to enter. While it might be considered rude for a person to skip ahead, for a cat in Istanbul, it was quite the norm. Cats were welcomed everywhere in the city, free to roam in places where humans could not. It was said that the cats of Istanbul had been given special status throughout the city's history, once helping to protect food supplies and grain stores from rats, and now serving as beloved companions in the bustling urban landscape. As Samuel wandered into the mosque, he felt the noise of the outside world gradually fade away. The soft echo of footsteps on the marble floors, the low murmur of voices, everything seemed muted in the sacred space. The vast interior of the mosque was a sight to behold. The domed ceiling, covered in stained glass windows, cast a beautiful array of colorful light across the room. Samuel's paws sank into the plush carpets as he padded along the floors, feeling the cool, smooth stone beneath his feet. He found a cozy corner in the mosque and curled up, resting his body on the thick carpet. From here, he could gaze upward at the intricate patterns on the ceiling, the blues, purples, and golds that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Samuel relaxed, his body unwinding as he lay on the soft rug, letting the peaceful atmosphere of the mosque soothe him. The city outside seemed so distant now, and for a moment Samuel felt as if time had slowed down. His tail relaxed, his muscles loosened, and he let out a soft purr, content in his serene surroundings. While Samuel could have easily stayed there all day, his adventurous spirit soon stirred. He knew that Istanbul was a city of endless discovery, and today was no different. The thought of climbing to the top of Galata Tower intrigued him. From the top of the tower, he would have a view of the entire city, a view that always left him in awe. With a final stretch, Samuel stood up and padded back out of the mosque, ready to continue his exploration. As Samuel left the peaceful sanctuary of the mosque behind, he felt the vibrant pulse of Istanbul's streets once more. The bustling energy of the city surrounded him as he made his way toward the Galata Tower, the iconic landmark that had watched over the city for centuries. The cobbled streets twisted and turned, leading him uphill where the tower loomed above, its narrow, weathered stone walls telling stories of a time long past. The Galata Tower stood proudly at the heart of the Beyoğlu district, a structure that had once served as a watchtower, guarding the city and its people against the threat of invading ships. Today, it no longer held such a military purpose, but it still provided one of the most stunning views in all of Istanbul. Samuel had been up there many times, and every time he gazed out from the top, he was struck by the breathtaking panorama of the city below. As Samuel reached the foot of the tower, he paused to look up at its towering height. The tower, with its conical roof and weathered brick exterior, seemed almost timeless, as though it had been standing guard over Istanbul for centuries. Without wasting another moment, he began the ascent up the narrow, winding staircase inside, his paws clicking softly on the stone steps as he made his way to the top. Once at the top, Samuel felt the wind on his face and looked out over the city. The Bosphorus Strait stretched out before him, its waters shimmering in the afternoon light. The city seemed to sprawl endlessly in all directions, a patchwork of rooftops, minarets, and the occasional gleaming glass skyscraper. The ancient mosques with their domes and minarets dotted the skyline like sentinels watching over the city's history. In the distance, the green hills of Istanbul rose gently against the sky, adding a serene backdrop to the bustling city below. Samuel stood there for a while, taking in the view. From the Galata Tower, he could see the whole of Istanbul, both its modern and ancient sides, its vibrancy and history. He felt as though he were at the very center of the world, and for a brief moment, the whole city seemed to belong to him. The noise and chaos of the streets below were mere whispers, lost in the wind as it swept through the tower. But as much as he enjoyed the view, Samuel's attention was soon diverted. He felt the familiar pull of the sounds of the city once more. The music, the chatter, the sense of delicious food wafting through the air. He decided to head down from the tower and explore a different part of the city, a part of Istanbul that had always intrigued him. Music Street, or Music Kadesi, was a vibrant and lively place. It was lined with shops that specialized in musical instruments, both old and new. Samuel was no musician himself, but he loved the sounds that echoed through the street, the melodies of guitars, drums, and traditional Turkish instruments drifting through the air like a symphony of the city. The rhythmic beat of the davul, a traditional Turkish drum mixed with the sweet, melodic strains of the bağlama, a stringed instrument that had been played in Turkey for centuries. As Samuel walked down Music Street, he felt the rhythm in his paws. He couldn't help but sway to the beat of the music as it surrounded him. The instruments in the shops were on display, some new and shining, others old and worn, each with its own story to tell. The air was filled with the sounds of musicians testing their instruments, creating a lively atmosphere that brought the street to life. Samuel's tail swished in time with the music as he made his way to a small square at the end of the street. It was here that he found his favorite bench, a spot where he could bask in the sun and listen to the music in peace. He jumped up onto the bench and stretched out, closing his eyes as the warmth of the sun washed over him. The music played on, a perfect soundtrack to his afternoon sunbathe. For hours, Samuel lay there, his body relaxed in the warmth of the sun, his tail flicking occasionally to the rhythm of the music. The sounds of the city became a soft hum in the background as he drifted in and out of a light sleep. The mixture of music, sunshine, and the occasional scent of food wafting through the air made for a perfect afternoon. But just as Samuel was about to doze off completely, a sweet scent reached his nose. It was the smell of something sugary and delicious, something that could only mean one thing. It was time for a snack. Samuel's whiskers twitched as he lifted his head and glanced around. He knew exactly where to go for the best treats in the city. Samuel didn't waste any time. The sweet, sugary scent that had caught his attention led him down the street to one of Istanbul's most famous patisseries. The shop, a local favorite, was renowned for its Turkish sweets, a perfect stop for anyone with a craving for something decadent. The display behind the glass counter was a mesmerizing sight. Bowls of soothe, a creamy rice pudding dusted with cinnamon, delicate plates of lakma, fried dough balls soaked in sugar syrup, and, of course, the ever-popular baklava, a rich, flaky pastry filled with crushed nuts and drenched in honey. Samuel's eyes sparkled as he stood on his hind legs, peering through the glass, his tail flicking with anticipation. The colorful array of desserts was irresistible. As he waited, the kind waiter who had seen Samuel around the city many times spotted the marmalade cat. With a warm smile, the waiter slid a small plate of baklava toward Samuel, a treat he had grown to love. The golden layers of pastry gleamed under the shop lights, and Samuel could already taste the sweet honey and crunchy pistachios in his mind. Without missing a beat, Samuel dug in. The first bite was pure bliss. The crisp pastry crumbled perfectly in his mouth, the honey adding a touch of sweetness that lingered on his tongue. The pistachios gave the treat a slight crunch, and the flavor was so intense that it made Samuel close his eyes in contentment. Every bite was better than the last, and the sticky sweetness coated his whiskers as he licked the crumbs away. After finishing the baklava, Samuel felt fully satisfied. He gave his whiskers one last lick, cleaned his paws, and made his way back into the street. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the bustling city. The lights from the neon signs around the street flickered on, and the energy of the city seemed to shift as evening approached. Istanbul, with its labyrinth of streets, was now preparing for its nighttime rhythm. Samuel wandered through the busy shopping streets, the clatter of people's footsteps, the hum of conversations, and the occasional jingling of bells from trams that clattered down the cobbled streets, filling the air. The avenue was alive with activity, as shoppers, tourists, and locals all made their way through the city's nightlife. The street was a vibrant mix of cafes, restaurants, and boutique stores, the lights glowing brightly against the night sky. But Samuel, feeling a little weary from his long day of exploration, knew he needed to rest. He had visited many corners of the city, from the Galata Bridge to Music Street, and now he longed for a quiet place to wind down. His thoughts turned to the perfect place, a retreat where he could rest in peace after his adventures. It was time to visit one of Istanbul's most cherished traditions, the hammam. The hammam, a Turkish bath, was not just a place for relaxation. It was a cultural institution, a place where people came to unwind, cleanse themselves, and indulge in the soothing warmth of the steam. Samuel had visited the hammam before, and he knew that tonight would be no different. The warm, fragrant atmosphere and the soothing sounds of water and steam would be the perfect way to end his day. Samuel hopped onto a tram and made his way toward one of the oldest hammams in the city, nestled in the heart of the old quarter. The building was grand, with high stone walls and a domed roof that seemed to rise up against the sky. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of cedar soap and the sound of water gently splashing. Samuel slipped inside, feeling the comforting warmth of the steam room immediately. He found a quiet corner where he could relax and enjoy the serenity. The marble floors were cool to the touch, and Samuel's paws sank gently into the smooth stone as he padded toward a private basin. There, he scrubbed his paws and whiskers, dipping them in fresh, cool water before shaking the droplets off. After a few moments of quiet grooming, he made his way to the main area of the hammam, where large, heated marble stones stood like ancient pillars. Samuel lay down on a traditional linen towel known as a pestimal, feeling the warmth of the stone seep into his muscles. The heat was soothing, melting away any tension in his body. He closed his eyes, letting the steam envelop him as he relaxed on the cool marble. The sound of water dripping softly from the fountains and the occasional murmur of fellow bathers made the atmosphere peaceful and calming. For Samuel, it was the perfect way to unwind after a long day of exploration. As the steam and warmth worked their magic, Samuel felt his body relax even further. The heat crept into his muscles, loosening them one by one, until he felt as though he were floating in a state of complete contentment. His tail flicked lazily as he settled deeper into the marble, and for a moment, it seemed as though time had stopped. The gentle warmth, the soothing scents, and the peaceful sounds all combined to create a tranquil oasis in the heart of the bustling city. After his soothing time at the hammam, Samuel felt rejuvenated. The warmth had loosened his tired muscles, and the tranquil atmosphere of the Turkish bath had melted away all the tensions of the day. His whiskers twitched as he stood up, stretching his body, his tail flicking with contentment. It had been an exciting day filled with exploration, tasty treats, and peaceful moments of reflection. But now, as the night began to fall, Samuel knew it was time for one last adventure. With his paws freshly groomed and his fur fluffed from the warm steam, Samuel made his way through the winding streets of Istanbul. The city had a different energy at night. The neon lights of the shops and cafes cast long shadows on the cobblestone streets, and the city's heartbeat seemed to slow down, shifting to a more relaxed rhythm. As he wandered through the quieting streets, the occasional sound of music drifted from a nearby cafe, where a musician strummed a guitar, and the soft chatter of people enjoying their evening mingled with the occasional distant call of a street vendor. Samuel's pause led him to the final stop of his day, the Topkapi Palace. Overlooking the Bosphorus, the palace was a magnificent structure, once the home of the Ottoman sultans and their court. Samuel had always been drawn to the palace's grand architecture and the peaceful gardens that surrounded it. As he approached the massive gates, he felt a sense of reverence for the history that stood before him. The high walls and turrets, with their intricate carvings and gilded decorations, seemed almost timeless, as though they were part of a different era entirely. Despite the grandeur of the palace, Samuel knew the true magic of Topkapi lay in its interior. Inside, the palace was a world unto itself, filled with ornate courtyards and gardens that whispered tales of the sultans who once lived there. Samuel slinked through the palace gates, unnoticed as usual, being a cat in Istanbul had its perks after all. He padded softly across the marble floors, the sound of his paws muffled by the plush carpets that lined the royal halls. The walls of the palace were covered in hand-painted tiles that depicted scenes from nature, symbols of the Ottoman Empire, and delicate patterns that seemed to dance with the light. Samuel wandered through the halls, admiring the intricate craftsmanship of the tiles and the gilded ceilings that seemed to glow under the soft light of the palace lamps. Every room he entered felt like stepping into a different world, a world filled with beauty and history. Soon, Samuel found himself in a secluded garden, hidden behind a wrought iron gate. The peaceful oasis offered a moment of quiet reflection, and Samuel took a deep breath, savoring the fragrance of the roses that lined the garden walls. The night sky above was clear, with a scattering of stars twinkling overhead. The gentle rustling of olive trees in the breeze was the only sound, adding to the serene atmosphere. Samuel padded over to a marble bench near the fountain, curling up on the cool stone. The soft murmur of the water combined with the calm of the garden made it the perfect spot to end his day. As Samuel lay there, watching the stars twinkle above him, he felt a deep sense of contentment. The sights and sounds of Istanbul, the bustling streets, the quiet corners, and the delicious food had all been part of his journey. But now, in the peace of the palace garden, he realized how much he had come to love this city. It wasn't just the excitement of the markets or the flavors of the food. It was the way the city made him feel. Istanbul was a place where time seemed to stand still, where past and present intertwined, and where every moment was an opportunity for discovery. With a long yawn, Samuel stretched out on the marble bench, letting the cool air wash over him. He thought about the day ahead, the adventures yet to come, the new sights to see and the new flavors to savor. But for now, there was no need to think about the future. As the gentle sounds of the night surrounded him, Samuel let his eyes drift shut, his body relaxing fully into the peaceful stillness of the garden. It had been a long and wonderful day, filled with exploration, food, music, and rest. Samuel's tail flicked once before it settled beside him, and with a final contented sigh, he drifted into a deep, peaceful sleep. Istanbul, with all its beauty and energy, had been the perfect backdrop to his adventures. And in the quiet of the palace garden, Samuel knew that tomorrow would bring another day full of wonder, discovery, and perhaps a few more tasty fish sandwiches.